And so now you're in a place where most of what's coming at you is designed to appeal to the negative bias of the human brain, the survival mechanism. Mm-hmm. And so that's why most people get overwhelmed. So they hear all these stories. And now these last couple of years, the stories have been really scary for people. Like we're all going to die if you breathe on somebody. And so now what could possibly be compelling? So it's not enough to paint a compelling picture. You have to shift their body. You have to shift the way they're using their body. If I said to you there was a depressed person behind curtain number one, and I'll give you a $100,000 donation to your favorite charity if you can describe their posture, I bet you could do it. What's their posture like if they're depressed?
They're slumped over. They're probably breathing really heavy, or really, really light and short. Their voice is probably low, and they're speaking really slow.
Slow, shoulders down, slumped, shallow breath. Now, how do you know that? Because we've all practiced this shit at some point in ourselves, right? And felt that way. But if you take that same person and you change their physiology, you bring their shoulders back, you change the tempo at which they're speaking, you change how their voice is, you change their movements with punctuated movements, that person's biochemistry changes. You don't need a drug to do it and it has no side effects. And then when you develop the habit of using your body that way, then all of a sudden you have the habit of perceiving life differently.
Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be talking about your future self. We're going to be talking about what I feel is one of the most overlooked parts of hitting your goals and trying to create the life that you want to. And I'm going to give you a tip that I think is really, really simple in personal development, but is often overlooked and I think might be the most important part of hitting your goals. And it might be the most important part for creating a life that you actually want. And, sitting there and saying, oh, create the life that you want. It sounds corny, but it is actually true. You need to understand that you have to build yourself into the person that you want to be. You have to build yourself into the person that can create the life that you want to. You either do that or you settle for life and you settle for what comes to you. So you either settle for life or you actually go and create it. And so I want you to realize this before anything else. Your life, as it is right now, and everything that you have or don't have is your creation. Now realize that it might have been unconsciously created and now you've started to wake up to maybe wanting to be conscious in your life and create the life that you want. But everything that you have now, you have created through actions that you did or did not take in the past. And if you think about that, that means that your future, the future that you do have, will eventually be a present moment that you have created. And so it is all your creation. You have created all that is around you. And most people are passively living their lives and just letting things happen to them. It's like they're just a passenger on a sailboat. And then one day they realize they're the only one in the sailboat and they've just been letting the tides and the winds of life take them wherever it's going to be versus stepping into the driver's seat and say, I'm going to steer this sailboat to where I want it to go. And so we're going to talk about how to create the life that you want through becoming the person you need to become. And I'm going to make it super simple. Where you are right now is where you are. That's it. In the future, there is where you want to be. Very simple, right? There's where you are now. There's where you want to be. So let's talk about 1 year from now, and we'll talk about 5 years from now, right? So there's where you are right now, and there's where you want to be in 5 years. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Have you thought about that? Have you thought and said, hey, by this day at this time, this is exactly what I want for my life? Have you ever thought about that? And have you not just thought about it, but have you written it down? If you have a pen and paper, if you're sitting around your house, write it down. Pause me if you need to. Where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want my life to look like in 5 years? What is a life for me that would be a hell yes? A life that gets you excited. A life that gives you energy that you want to, when you think about it, it actually gives you energy. It makes you excited to think about that life. One thing that I always say, if you've been listening to podcasts long enough, is that you need to follow your energy. When you think about something and you plan it out, you want to make sure that it gives you energy. And if it gives you energy, you want to follow that energy. Follow the feeling of what would be an amazing life to you. If you're planning something out, or you're planning out your future, and it doesn't feel like a full fuck yes, like doesn't give you energy, I'm just going to be honest, it's not for you. For instance, if you're in a relationship and you say, okay, I've got to fast forward 5 years. What does that relationship look like in 5 years? Does that relationship feel like a hell yes? Or are you like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be in this relationship in 5 years. Do you feel like you want to grow alongside this person? Does that give you energy to think of growing alongside them in the next 5 years? Does it make you excited to be in a relationship with them in 5 years? If so, hell yeah, follow that energy. If not, if it doesn't give you energy and feels maybe a little bit draining, the relationship needs to change. Either the relationship between you two needs to change, you and the person need to change in some sort of way, or you need to change and get out of the relationship and find one that does give you energy. And so it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to break up with the person, but the dynamics of the relationship could change. Maybe that gives you energy. And so it's about figuring out what is it that actually gives you energy when you fast forward into the future. Same with your job. How do you make money 5 years from today? Fast forward 5 years from today. Does it give you energy to think in 5 years, I'm going to be at this position. I'll maybe make a little bit more money. Maybe I'll get a promotion. If it does, awesome. Follow that energy. But for me, the last job that I worked back in 2015 for someone when I finally quit was I went, hey, if I fast forward 5 years from today and I get promoted a few times and I'm still in this company, is that exciting to me? And I was like, no, absolutely. Like red flag. I don't want to be here anymore. I went, okay, that means I need to leave this as soon as possible. Do you want to be making money in the same way? Do you want to be working for somebody else? Do you want to be having your own business and running your own business? What is it that you want? And so you got to start thinking about your life and start thinking about your relationship, start thinking about your job, the company, your employees, your friends, your body, your health, your children, your character, every aspect of your life, and say, when I go through each one of these categories, what is a full hell yes for me? What is a absolutely, this is exciting. This is what I want to do in the next 5 years. And you start to plan it out. So pause me if you need to. If you're hanging out at your house, you have a pen and paper next to you, pause me, start to plan it out. Put your life down on paper. Because when it's on paper, it can be planned. And there's many, many studies that show that people that write down their goals tend to be more successful and more likely to hit their goals than people who don't. So you might as well pause me and just do it if you need to. If you're driving, obviously don't start writing. You can do this later on today if you need to. And then once you've figured out your 5 years, what you got to start to look at is, what does the next 12 months look like for me? If this is the first year of the next 5 years, where do I want to be in 12 months? What do I want to be? If I look at it and I say, okay, each year is basically like a checkpoint. What's the checkpoint I want to cross over 12 months from today that show me that I'm on track for the next 5 years? Where do I want to be at that first checkpoint? Where do I want my relationship to be in a year? My job to be in a year? My company be in a year? My employees to be in a year? My friends to be in a year? My body, my health, my children, my character? Where do I want those things to be in a year from today? And you plan out every aspect of your life for the first off for the next 5 years, and then for the next year. Where do you want to be 365 days from today? Now, here's the most important part that I think is often overlooked. Now that we've planned what we want our life to look like, the most important thing is to plan out who you need to be to create that life. Who do you need to be to create the life that you just wrote down on a piece of paper? Because once again, you're going to create the life, whether it's passively in not paying attention or whether it's actively and actually being very intentional with creating your life. Because too often people tend to focus on what they need to do, which doing things is important, but what's more important is who you need to be to create the life. Because you will do things naturally when you are that person. The person who can create that life will automatically do the things that need to be done. And this is shown over and over again that planning out your future self is really important to create the life that you want. There's a theory called the self-concept and self-identity theory. And our self-concept, which is basically, how we view ourselves, plays a massive role in our behavior, our motivation, and our self-esteem. And studies show that when people have a clear view of their future selves, they are more likely to make decisions in the present that align with the vision that they have for themselves, which leads to better life outcomes and more likely to be successful in accomplishing whatever that goal is. Do you get that? Do you hear me? Let me say that again. Our self-concept, who we think that we actually are, plays a massive role in our behavior, in our motivation, our self-esteem. And studies prove over and over and over again that when people have a clear and positive view of their future selves, a clear view of who they need to be, they're more likely to make decisions and act in the present moment as if they are that person, which leads them to more likely becoming that person. There's another theory called the self-discrepancy theory, and it suggests that people have 3 self-guides, they call them. Number 1 is your actual self, which is who you are or who you think you are. Number 2 is your ideal self, who you want to be in the future. And number 3 is what they call the ought self, who you think you should be. And so when there's discrepancies between the actual self, the ideal self, or the ought self, it can lead to different emotions and less motivation. So the goal is to try to figure out, number 1, who am I? Number 2, who do I want to be? And number 3, who do I think I should be? And the goal is to try to make those 3 selves align so that you're more likely to be motivated towards achieving what it is that you want. And so you actually want to figure out, who am I? Who do I want to be? And who should I be? And actually see, can I make those 3 people start to line up every day and become more aligned with every action that I take? And so let me show you what I mean. When you look at your 1-year goals, if you were to be that person today, you would already have the life that you want. If you look at your 5-year goals, if you were that person today that could achieve that, you would already have it. So it shows you that building yourself is more important than building your life, because as you build yourself, your life is a natural byproduct of that self. Because when you build yourself, your life will automatically happen. You will take those actions. And I'll give you an example from personal experience, right? I've been saying this for years, and the older I get, it becomes more and more true. The life I have now, I could not have had 5 years ago. I couldn't, because I was not yet the person who could create this life. But over time, I built myself and I built myself and I built, like Tony Robbins says, I've seen him say on stage, he says, when you see this guy in front of you, I built this motherfucker. That's what he says. And you've got to see the same way of like, I'm building this self, this person that I am. And me too, like I have built myself over time. And I start thinking about it. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a busy person. Like I'm very busy. I've got a lot of things. I've got plate spinning. I've got this podcast. We just put the book out last week. We're creating a ton of content for podcasts, for social media, for TikTok. And, you know, I have my own coaching business, which we have at this point around 34 employees in the business. I'm in Austin. I travel all over the world. I go to different places a lot. I basically have 3 jobs. And then I also have my personal life. I've got my wife. I've got my life that I want to spend with her. I've got my health. I've got my personal development. I've got, you know, this whole process of learning how to fly a plane. Like I've got a bunch of different things. And one day it hit me, like if I go back to Rob when he started this podcast in 2015, and I look at Rob, if I were to take Rob from 2015 and plant him into today and try to run my business and run this podcast and run the life I have and run the relationship with Lauren and run all of these things, if I were to have Rob from 2015 transport into today and say, hey, take over, I would have had a mental breakdown. It would have been way too much for him because he was not enough yet. Not like bad. It wasn't a bad thing. I'm not saying good enough. I wasn't enough of the person yet to be able to run this life. But over time, I've built myself into the person who can have the mental, emotional, and physical bandwidth to hold all of it. I have not gotten better. I've not gotten worse. I have evolved over time, and I've evolved into a new version of myself. And that's what's really cool about it, is that it's not like I can't ever get the life that I want in the future. It's that if I see this amazing life in the future and I don't have it yet, it's because I haven't evolved enough into be the person that can create it. And so the real question is, how can you evolve yourself every single day to be the person that create the life that you want to? Focus on building yourself while taking the action that you need to create the life. That's the most important thing. Don't just read the books and go to the conferences and listen to the podcasts and not take the action. The action needs to be taken. Like if you were to go to the gym every day for the next 5 years, you would have a better body. You would have bigger muscles. You would probably have less fat. You would be able to lift more because of the fact that you went to the gym every single day. So In 5 years, you'll just simply be able to lift more because you've been taking the action that you need to. And so when you look at your 5-year goals, when you look at your 1-year goals, who do you need to be to create that life? Who do you need to be? What action does that person take? In 5 years from today, if you were to plan out their entire day, what actions do they take on a daily basis? What habits do they have? What standards do they hold themselves to that you don't hold yourself to? How do they talk to themselves? How do they talk to others? How do they follow through with people that rely on them? What's their morning routine look like? What type of food do they eat? How do they take care of their body? How do they take care of their mind? How do they take care of the people around them? Who do they surround themselves with? And you start to get very clear on who this person is and who you need to evolve into. And you use that person as basically just the test to go, okay, well, I've got this decision I need to make. My future self in 5 years, what would they do if they were in my shoes right now? What actions would they take? And you start to focus on who you need to be and building yourself into that person while taking the action that you need to, which is important. You build yourself into that person and you take that action. So it's not just about looking at your goals and saying, what do I need to do? It's looking at your goals saying, what do I need to do? But most importantly, who do I need to become? Who do I need to evolve myself into? Because when I look at that goal in 5 years, the reason why I'm not there yet is because I haven't evolved into the person that can create that life. What do I need to do over the next 5 years? What do I need to do today to start to be more like that person? What do I need to do today to start to think more like them, to act more like them? And you basically kind of try it on as like a new t-shirt. I'm going to try to be this person for a day and just see if I like it. I'm going to try to take more action. I'm going to try to be more confident. I'm going to try to be more outgoing. I'm going to try to take more action to create the life I want. I'm going to go to the gym more often. Try that shirt on like it's a shirt and just say, hey, do I like the way the shirt fits? If you do, wear it tomorrow. And just continue to step more into that evolved version of yourself. And if you do, you will look forward. You will look back, I guess, in 5 years. You'll look back and go, damn, I did actually kind of create the life that I wanted to. And so what you need to focus on, of course, is your goals. Of course, is what you need to do. But most importantly is who you need to become so that you can build yourself into that person. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial, and if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. And if you're out there and you love this podcast and you want some more extra tips and tricks to improve your mindset, go ahead and go to mondayemail.com. Once again, mondayemail.com. That's where I send tips and tricks of how to improve your mindset even more than we teach just in this podcast. So if you want some extra help, go to mondayemail.com. It's absolutely free and sign up there. Today, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be going really deep today. Today's episode is actually going to be titled, Why the Hell Were We Never Taught This? And this is something that I think is going to be very eye-opening for most people out there. We're going to be talking about how to become a better, calmer, more centered, less triggered, less anxious, better version of yourself more than anything else. I don't want to say that I don't like using the phrase better because better means inherently that you're worse at this point, but you know what I mean by better, a more improved, a more enlightened, a more calm and centered version of yourself. And I'm going to give you 5 different tips that are really going to help with this. And the way I actually decided to make this podcast episode was I talked about a little while ago in an episode, just really quickly, about self-soothing and how I think that most people as adults actually have problems with self-soothing. We're never really taught how to self-soothe. And an example of what I mean by self-soothing or soothing in general is when you're a baby and you're crying and you are going through emotions, your mother will pick you up and soothe you and also give you a pacifier, and those things will soothe you. But as we become adults, as we become actually children, and we start to have anger issues or we yell, we're then told that we're not supposed to be that way. And you get to a certain point where the crying or the having emotion, whatever it is, can go from let me soothe you to shut up for some people. And what happens is we don't actually learn how to self-soothe as adults, or as children. And then as adults, now we're 30, 40, 50 years old and we have no idea how to self-soothe ourselves. And what exactly I mean by self-soothing is The act of being able to get yourself back to homeostasis, to bring yourself back to a calm and centered state, no matter what is happening around you, but also no matter what is happening inside of you. After being triggered in some sort of way, it is a reset of going back to homeostasis and the nervous system. Because when I say triggered can mean many things to many people depending on who you are. For some people listening, it might be anger. Somebody says something to you or does something to you, or you see something a certain way and you become angry, and it could be rage. For some people, that triggering can be somebody says the exact same thing to you as the other person, but instead of being angry or getting rage, it might be sadness. It might be something happens to you, or you have a whole lot of things that you have to do over the next week or today, and you get very anxious and stressed. It could be depressed. And so really what those are heightened emotions. They're considered quote unquote lower emotions or like wrong emotions. And I want to say first off, when I'm talking about trigger and I'm talking about emotions, there is nothing wrong with any emotion. Emotions are emotions and should be felt and should be expressed. But we're not talking about bad emotions or this emotion's better than this one. All emotions just are. Happy, joy, peace, calm, centered, rage, anxiousness, all of those things just are. They're not bad. They're just part of the human experience that you are existing in. And that's it. But really what I mean by that is we don't want to live in any emotion. We don't want to live in rage and anger and stress and depressed and anxious. You don't want to live there. You can feel them. You can express them. You can do what needs to be done. But you've got to have some form of a strategy to be able to self-soothe, to be able to get yourself back to that feeling where it's just calm, peaceful, joy. Nothing has to happen. Nothing could make you feel out of homeostasis, just calm, centered, back to normal. As I said, it's a reset back to the nervous system. So, in the example that I gave not long ago, I was talking about how a lot of people have a stressful day at work. And after that stressful day at work, the way that they self-soothe is coming back, the boss said something, their coworkers didn't show up for a presentation and they had to do everything, whatever it was, somehow they were triggered in some way. And then they come home and they think, man, today was a hard day. I need a glass of wine. Now, no judgment. I don't think that that's necessarily bad, but that's a form of using external substances in order to change an internal state. But you wake up tomorrow and you are the exact same person. There was no improvement. And the glass of wine actually becomes more of a numbing of your emotions. So instead of expressing them, working through them, and then self-soothing, it is a numbing of those emotions, which eventually builds up and builds up and builds up. And usually for a lot of people, it comes to an explosion or a breakdown or rage or something like that, because it's just like, I get triggered and then I numb, and I get triggered and I numb, and I get triggered and I get numb. That means those emotions are never actually flowing through my body and out of my body, and then never getting back to an actual place of homeostasis. I'm using the cigarette or the glass of wine or the drugs or whatever it is externally to numb the feeling that I have of triggered, whatever that triggered might be. And so, although a glass of wine is amazing, it's the easy way and there's no growth from it. You're not going to wake up and be better. So what would be better than that is being able to actually understand what self-soothing is and being able to come home after a long day that might have been stressful at work, instead of reaching for a glass of wine to not feel it anymore, to actually be able to self-soothe and bring yourself back through your own practices to calm and centered. That is a way of self-improvement and a way to become better in the process. And it's not sexy. It's definitely not the easy way. To be able to have wine or alcohol or any of those things, drugs, all of those are the easiest way. So what I'm going to talk about with these self-soothing and the 5 tips I'm going to give you are not the easier way. They take a little bit longer. They're not as sexy as drinking a glass of wine and watching Netflix, but it will come to be, you will come to be a person that is more developed and better through the process. Because then something can happen, and instead of having to come home and self-soothe, you can self-soothe in the moment. And while shit can be hitting the fan outside of you, you can be calm, centered, peaceful, everything being okay. And so that's what we're going to go through, is how you can get there. And I'm going to give you a few tips that I like, that work for me, and that I've used with many of my clients in the past. I'm also going to give you a few that are just outside of that as well. But there's many ways to self-soothe. What I really want to do is actually open up the conversation in your own mind of when you need self-soothing so you can become aware of it. And then also what might work for you so that you can grow as well. And really, it's kind of like an adult pacifier. Baby's crying, you give them a pacifier, it soothes them. What is your adult pacifier is what we're trying to figure out through this process. Cool? So let's go ahead and go through a few self-soothing techniques that I think will help you out. The first one is probably obvious to a lot of people, and you probably thought I might be talking about this, is meditation. But I'm going to take it one step further than just meditation, because I don't know about you, but when shit's hitting the fan and I try to meditate, sometimes it works. A lot of times though, my brain is just processing and thinking. And so I'll sit down for a 20-minute meditation and my brain's thinking the entire time. A lot of what I'm going to teach you today is to go from the head to the body. Like, we're trying to get back into your physical body, because when you're thinking, you're usually thinking into the future, you're usually making fake futures that don't exist. You're usually worrying yourself and stressing yourself out more. I want to bring you back into your body, into the present moment. So meditation can help, but if I'm being honest with you, it's a little bit hard when shit's hitting the fan. What I prefer is breathing exercises with a meditation. I prefer conscious breathing with that meditation that I'm doing, because therefore we're trying to bring ourselves out of the mind, which meditation usually brings us into the mind, and bring us into the body. So there's a couple different techniques that I'll teach you, and you can try all of these if you want. The first one, which we've tried on the podcast before if you've been listening for a while, is just 6 deep conscious breaths. That's in through the nose and then out through the mouth. When you breathe out, it's like breathing out through a straw, so it's a long exhale. The long exhale is actually the most important part, because a long exhale actually slows your heart rate down. So what would it sound like? I'll just do one of them, but you would do 6. You go in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. You do 6 of those, and 6 of those, if you close your eyes and just really concentrate on the breathing, actually you'll feel a massive shift in 6 breaths. So that's an option if you don't have a whole lot of time. That's usually one if I don't have a whole lot of time and I want to bring myself back to calm and centered. That's usually what I'll go for. One that I think can be even better sometimes is Wim Hof. Wim Hof breathing is just it's coined by Wim Hof, a man now, but it's really an ancient form of breathing, which is a deep breath in and let it fall out. Both of them through your mouth, and you do 30 breaths. So if you were to do, I'll do 5 of them, it would be you do 30 of those, and then you hold your breath at the end as long as you possibly can, and then you breathe all the way out, and then you do another round. So that's one round. You would want to do 3 of them. And what these are doing is it's bringing you back into your body more than anything else. If you want to go even further, just another thing to try out, this is what I like to do if there's really stuff going crazy and I feel like you need a full reset on the nervous system, is I'll do 3 rounds of Wim Hof, so 30 breaths in and out, breathe all the way in, hold as long as you possibly can, breathe all the way out, and then you go do another round. You do 3 rounds of that, and then the last round, I breathe all the way in. This is something that Wim Hof talks about as a massive reset to your nervous system. On the very last round, I'll breathe all the way in, and then hold as long as I possibly can and do as many push-ups as I possibly can without breathing again. And then once I get to a point, obviously don't knock yourself out and don't go to extremes. Go to a point where you're like, okay, now I need to breathe again. What's interesting is that for me personally, when I do this, I'm over oxygenated, which means I have a lot of oxygen inside of my body, and I'll be able to do more push-ups without breathing than I can if I breathe normally. And so what this does is, when you're in this state, for me personally, when I'm in this state of stress, things going on, and then I do this reset, when I'm not breathing and I'm doing as many push-ups as possible, my brain and body are so on point with each other. And so I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the thing that's stressing me out. I'm literally thinking about this present second. Now I get done with that exercise and I'm like, man, that feels like a full nervous system reset. So that's the first thing that I really like, is breathing exercises. My second one, which is another one of my favorites, is music. So what I like to do is put on my headphones and listen to certain songs. There's 2 songs that I listen to the most. One of them is a song that I found years ago that was considered, I don't know how scientists figured that out, the most calming song ever created. It's a song called Weightless by a band or a person, I don't know what it is, called Marconi Union. And there's actually a 10-hour version of it available on YouTube. So the song itself is like 3 minutes long, but someone made a 10-hour version of it on YouTube if you really want to calm down. So I'll put that song on. Usually that's what I put on if I'm in the car. Or there's another song that for me, personally, I don't know why, just calms me down like crazy. And it's the Out of Africa theme song. And it's from the movie Out of Africa. And I remember when I was running my very first business and it got really stressful, there were times when I needed to go into my office, shut the door, and I would tell everyone who, my assistant managers and my receptionists, everything, like, hey, give me 10 minutes. And I would close my eyes and I would put that on and I would just do deep breathing. And that song just kind of fully chilled me out. So for me, I know those are my two songs. Those are like in my back pocket if I really need them. For you, I would say figure out what music works for you, what music calms you down, so that you could try to bring yourself out of that rage, anger, sadness, anxiousness state, and bring yourself back into the present moment, into your body. So that's number 2. Number 3 is movement. Usually, once again, if you're in your head, you want to get back into your body. So you can do your pick of movement. I'm going to give you a few different options. It could be upbeat, it could be slow, depending on what you need, depending on who you are, depending on your personality. It could be jumping jacks, it could be push-ups, it could be a whole workout, or it could be yoga and it could be stretching. Or it could be just standing up and just shaking everything out. Like there's a thing that I'll do sometimes and I'll just shake everything out as much as I can. And I'm trying to get back into the body, trying to bring myself back to body. So sometimes just jumping and then trying to shake all of my arms, my limbs, my shoulders, everything. And I referenced this in the other episode when I was talking about self-soothing really quickly, is that every animal has some form of a way to get adrenaline out of their body. And for some animals, it's a form of shaking after they get chased by an animal. For my dog, one of the things that he does all the time is he yawns. We call them stress yawns, where he has these yawns, and they're like these really labored yawns that he does. And we can tell that he's stressed out, and he's trying to move that adrenaline through his body is what he's doing. And sometimes when he's nervous, he'll also shake. Like we took him on a plane not too long ago, and normally he's fine on a plane, but for some reason this plane was really loud, and he was just shaking the entire time. So the poor guy was shaking, and that was his way of moving the adrenaline, moving the emotion through his body. And so for you, movement could be able to be something that could help you as well. Get back into your body, get out of your head that's making all of this stress. And because it's never actually the circumstance that's stressing you out or making you sad or making you anxious, it's what you're thinking about that thing. So it's all in the head. You want to bring it back into the body. Another one, which is number 4, which really helps with getting back into the body, is something called tapping. So there's this thing called tapping where you can tap certain parts of your body, and I don't want to talk about it because I'm not an expert on it. There's certain parts of your body that you can tap that are supposed to calm your nervous system down. If you look up tapping and how to do it, you can definitely do it. I know one of them is on the crown of your head. Another one's like middle forehead. Another one happens to be right next to your nose. Another one's in the bottom of your chin. Another one is in the center of your chest. For those of you guys that aren't watching the video on YouTube, you can't really see me, but I'm actually tapping those. And I prefer, over that tapping, I actually prefer another version of tapping that I do, which is actually standing up, moving my body around, doing the shaking just a little bit, kind of getting the energy moving. And then actually physically up, this isn't too loud on the microphone, actually physically tapping with an open hand, different parts of my muscles and my entire body. So literally like I'll go all the way down my arm, I'll go up to my chest, I'll go down my other arm, and I'll actually physically tap with a little bit of pressure. Like it doesn't hurt, but it's definitely hard. Then I'll do my legs, I'll do my back, I'll do my butt, all of that. And I'm actually physically moving and waking up my body. And I don't know what it is. Not an expert on this, but I'm telling you, it really freaking works. When you tap and just do some hard taps, in the chest and everything, you get under your stomach, it tends to just get you out of your head, get you back into your body, and that version of just a little bit more calm. So that's number 4. Number 5 is a thing called a physiological sigh. A physiological sigh is something that we do all of the time. Like I think on average, we do it about every 10 to 15 minutes unconsciously. But a physiological sigh is two quick breaths in and then one quick, like not very long, but longer breath out. So I became very aware of this with Lauren, my fiance. And years ago, she used to just do this. And I was like, man, she does this a lot. And it sounds like this. It's called a physiological sigh. If you do 1, 2, 3 of those, 2 quick ones in and through the nose and out through the mouth. What it does is it's actually a form, your body will do this naturally, of a way for your body to release CO2 from your body if there happens to be any extra or unneeded CO2 inside of your body. And so now that you know this, you can consciously use and what it's doing is it's fully expanding your lungs. And then there's these little packets inside of your lungs that until you're like fully full and you get another one, they didn't really open. And it actually is allowing your lungs to fully open and those packets to open, which is allowing more oxygen, less CO2, and your body can kind of calm down as well. Really what it comes down to, and this is my point of what I want to bring awareness to for everyone listening to this, is that there is options to be able to start to learn to become better at self-soothing. Your reaction to something is your choice. It's not something that just randomly happens. These are a few different things. You could also use smells. I know a lot of smells calm people down. I know baths calm people down. I know journaling calms people down. What I really want to do with you is I want to be able to help you understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and how to be able to move with it, move past it. These are all emotions, and emotion is just something that needs to be expressed. So I'm not talking about I'm feeling something and I'm trying to repress it. I'm talking about I'm feeling something. I need to release it as quickly as possible and get myself back to a state of calm, peace, equanimity, and be able to, we need to release it. And there's all these different ways to release it. What I really want you to start to think about is times when you need to release this energy, and then give you a couple strategies to do it as well, because that is going to help you become a better human. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Also, if you love this podcast, our podcast Instagram is blowing up. We've had some Instagram videos where we put up some reels just completely go viral and explode. We grew 40,000 people in the past couple weeks. And so if you want to follow us on that, the podcast Instagram is The Mindset Mentor Podcast. Once again, The Mindset Mentor Podcast. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Today, we're going to be talking about what the hell do you want? Like, what do you want in this life? What is it that's the thing that you want? And, you know, I ask people this all the time. I'm like, what do you want? And most people are like, I want to be like happy, and I want to be able to have some more money, and like it'd be nice to travel and stuff. And it's so crazy to me that so few people know what they want. Like they kind of have an idea, but there's no real like set, this is what I want. And it's funny because they're not really clear. And then they're mad that they don't have what they want, even though they don't know what the fuck they want, right? Like that's pretty crazy if you think about it. Like you need to know what it is that you want. And the more clear that you are on what it is that you want, the more likely you are to get it, because you can start saying yes to certain things and you can start saying no to certain things that don't line up with it. But the main reason why people don't get what they want in life is because they don't really even know what they want in life. You know, it's like, I always give the example on the podcast of it's like your mom calls you up before Christmas and she's like, honey, what do you want for Christmas? And you're like, oh, I don't really know. Just get me something, whatever you want. And then you open up your gift on Christmas and you're like pissed that she didn't get you what you wanted. And she's like, well, you didn't tell me what you wanted. It's like, the universe, God, whatever it is that you believe in, is constantly asking you like, dude, what the hell do you want? And you don't know, but you're pissed that you don't have it, right? So like, what do you want? Like, what is the reason why you're on this planet? What is when you die, how will you be remembered? Have you ever thought about that? Like, and it's not like just materialistic or traveling or a certain amount of money, but like, who do you want to be? Like, what kind of character traits and qualities? Like, when people are talking about you at your funeral and the eulogy, like, what do you want them to be saying about you? And can you figure out what traits and qualities and characteristics you want in yourself and be very clear on those and remind yourself of them every single morning so that you can start building yourself more into that person? Like, what do you want? Most people are standing there and like, I don't really know what I want. And because they've been told what they're supposed to want their entire lives. And it's like a skill set, right? It's like maybe you're so numb to what you want and your desires that you don't even know what you want anymore. And it's like going into the gym. You haven't used that desire muscle in a long time. You haven't thought about your own vision in a long time. So you're kind of like, I don't know what I want. Okay, well then let's try to figure out what it is that you want. And can we start to build that into you? You know, because when you're born, you're a baby, like you know what you want. When you're hungry, you cry. When you're in pain, you cry. When you wanted affection, You cried, like you knew what you want and you were like, give it to me, right? So what happened? What happened to you? What happened to us? Somewhere along the way, we're told, oh, don't be selfish. You want to be president? Oh, that's dumb. No one in this family's ever even graduated college. We don't come from a good part of town. Nobody likes us. We're not educated enough. That's dumb for you to think that you could do that. And, somewhere along the way, we go from believing we can do anything and we can get anything that we want in our life to it's not even realistic to get anything that we want in life. So somewhere along the way, somebody or many people smash our dreams and tell us to be realistic. And just because somebody else had their dreams and their goals destroyed doesn't mean that they have the right to do the same to you. And it's up to us to rediscover why we're here and what it is that we truly want. People say, oh yeah, you want to do that? No. You want to run your own business? No. Get a real job. That's dumb. You don't want to run your own business. Maybe you're, going to go to school and you want to do something cool. Like you want to be a musician and your mom's like, no, you have to go and you have to be an engineer. And so you go and you be an engineer because your parents told you to. Or you're a doctor because your parents told you to. The amount of people that I know that reach out to me on Instagram and they're like, Rob, I feel so lost. I'm 37 years old. I went to school for engineering, or I went to school for nursing, or I went to school to be a doctor, and it's not what I truly want. And I feel lost because my parents told me that's the thing I had to go to school for, and I don't want to do it. And it's so crazy to me and so sad that so many people, I don't want to say wasted because that's not the right word. You don't really waste years. You just learn what you don't want. But they followed other people's vision for their own future versus building their own vision. And so they wanted to be an artist, or they wanted to be a musician, or they wanted to, breed horses, or they wanted to make jewelry, or they wanted to do something completely different. Maybe they wanted to be on TV, but they followed the quote unquote realistic, secure route. If there's one thing that we've realized over the past few years since COVID hit, is that the least secure thing that you could do is work for somebody else. Like what we thought was secure within a couple weeks became very unsecure, right? And so if secure is going to college and getting a job, the past few years have shown us that is actually the least secure thing that you could do. The most secure thing that you could do is work for yourself. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to work for themselves, but if you are out there and you're like, man, I really wanted to start that business, but I decided to go the safe route, it ended up not being the safest route because I work for myself, and guess what? My boss is pretty awesome. I can't fire myself, right? I can't get fired. That's pretty awesome. And so it comes back to like, what do you want? If money were no object, and this is the thing that I've found with a lot of people, most people throw away their hopes and their desires because of money. They do. They throw it away. And so like, if I always like to say, it's like, Alan Watts always says, what would you be doing if money were no object? Like if money did not exist, or you had all the money in the world. The example I always give is like, say you wake up tomorrow morning and there's $500 in your bank account. Some amazing person makes a generous donation of $500 million. You're going to buy a bunch of stuff and have some fun and buy some clothes and watches and travel and some cars and some houses and some planes. But eventually you're going to spend $100 million and you're going to be like, well, what the hell do I do now? Right? Like what would then be fulfilling to you in your life? Because so many people just give away their hopes and their dreams and their desires to simply chase money. So it's like Alan Watts always says, he says, if you work just to make money and you don't like your job and you're following money, then you'll just continue to be doing things that you don't like doing in order to keep living, which is to be doing things that you don't like doing. So it's better to have a short life doing things that you love than to live a long life in a miserable way. And so what did you want to be as a kid? What do you love to do now? What interests you? What's your passion? What's your hobbies? When you were a kid, you could be you wanted to be a fireman or a firewoman, and you want to be the first female president, and you want to be a pilot, and you want to be an astronaut or something cool. And sometimes you want to be all of those things in one day, and you believed with every single fiber of your body that you could be all of those things in one day. But along the way, that is not quote unquote realistic. And somebody tells us we can't do that. And so we end up going the safe route. And so there's a part of you that still wants to do that wants to do something. There's something in this world there's a few things in this world that you're probably made to do, that you have ultimate passion for, that it's what you're made for. Your brain, your body, your life circumstances perfectly line up to make you this person. What is it? What would you love to be doing? Because there's a lot of unhappy people out there that go the safe route and they think that's what they're supposed to do. And they wake up 10, 20 years down the road and they're like, where the hell am I? How the hell did I get here? And that is really what the reason why they call it a midlife crisis, is because you wake up and you think, what the fuck did I do with my life? Like, why did I do this? So if money were no object, how would you fill your time? What do you love? What do you want to learn? What skill set do you want to get better at? Like, is there a hobby or something that you want to do? What is your passion? And the important thing to realize is this, is maybe you do find your passion and your passion can make you money. Sometimes your passion can become your paycheck. And that's awesome if it is possible. But for a lot of people, your passion isn't your paycheck. And that's okay as well. So can you make a paycheck? Can you make the money however you're going to make the money, but then spend the majority of your time doing something that you truly love? You know, like if you live inside of the city right now and you live in the city because you're trying to make money, but you just love mountain biking and you don't get enough time to go mountain biking and you don't get out of the city enough, is there a way that you could figure out, whether it's with this job or another job or working remote or building your own business, to be able to move to a place that would allow you to have the maximum amount of time mountain biking? Now, will you make money mountain biking? Probably not. You'll probably lose money because you'll spend money on all of the supplies. But if you live in the city right now and you really love mountain biking, you haven't been mountain biking in 3 months, the hell are you doing? Figure out a way to go out to places where you could spend the majority of your waking hours outside of work, outside of with your family, to be able to do the thing that makes you feel the most alive. How do you know what your purpose and your passion is? Well, there's a couple different ways, but one of the ways is like, what gives you the most energy? Like when you get done, if mountain biking is your thing, right? When you get done mountain biking after a long day, you could be exhausted, but you have so much energy from it. Like you feel alive. What are the things that make you feel alive? Those are the things that you should be following. And so it goes back to like Ikigai. You've heard me talk about Ikigai before. It's a Japanese concept where there's 4 questions that you should answer, and you should just write down all of the answers of anything that pops up. Number 1 is, what are you good at? And you write down everything that you're good at. Number 2 is, what do you love? You write down every single thing that you love. Number 3, what can you be paid for? You write down everything you be paid for. And number 4, what does the world need? And you write down everything that you feel the world needs. And if you can find the overlap of all 4 of those, that is what they call Ikigai, is your reason for being. It is your reason why you're on this planet. The 5th question that I think is important that is never really asked is, what is something, or what are all of the things that just really you're interested in? Like, what are you really interested in? And so like for me, like I just love learning about people and about humans and all of this stuff. And so like a few episodes ago, I did an episode on like trusting your gut. And I spent hours researching like a nerd. Like I nerd out on these things of like, what is it? There's 500 million neurons in the gut. Holy crap, this is amazing. Like I'm researching about the gut, the second brain. Most people don't want to do that. For me, it's just something that makes me super excited. I want to learn more about. And so like, are there certain things that just kind of light you up? And can you figure out a way to make those things your profession? Maybe, maybe not. But you know, it's the way I like to think about it is this, is there's a phrase that talks about the hummingbird and the jackhammer, right? Like for me, what I do now, making this podcast, making videos on Instagram and YouTube and coaching people and doing what I do now, I'm going to be doing forever. Like I have a pretty good feeling this is writing books. All of this stuff is what I'm going to be doing forever. For some people, their passion might be something they do for 3 years, 5 years, and then they go do another thing for 3 years and 5 years. And so the jackhammer versus the hummingbird, this will give a lot of you guys some relaxation into life, is like the jackhammer is a person that knows what they want. They know what it is they're going to be doing forever. That's what I feel like I am. A hummingbird is somebody where you can, hummingbird will go from one flower to another, to another, to another, and they just kind of bounce around flowers. Some people, they have a passion. They're very passionate about something for 3 years, and then they just decide to go to the next thing. And that's fine. And then they go to the next thing, and they go to the next thing. And they just get really passionate about a couple things for a couple years, and then that's just what they do. Neither one is right. Neither one is wrong. It's just really about what makes you feel the most alive. And so what do you want? You want to travel? Do you want to quit your job and backpack Europe? If you have a feeling that you want to quit your job and backpack Europe, I'm telling you right now, do that as soon as possible. In 2012, I backpacked Europe. I quit my job. 2012, I was 26 years old. I was making really good money for a 26-year-old. I was making like $150,000, $175,000 a year. I saved up all of my money for a year, lived as cheap as I possibly could, quit that job and went to Europe. And what was crazy about it was that I thought, like, I had planned it for 6 months, and so many people were like, so what do you do for work? And we talked for a while, and I was like, yeah, but in 3 months, I'm going to be leaving and going to Europe. I talked to so many people and told them that. I'm talking like 30, 40, 50, 60 people over 6 months, told them I was going to be doing that. Older than me, 40s, 50s, 60s. Not one person told me it was a bad idea to leave my job at 26 years old where I was making a bunch of money. Not one person told me it was a bad idea. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, I wish that there's two things that I heard all the time. Number one was, oh my gosh, that's an amazing idea. I wish that I would have done that when I was your age. That was the first thing I heard a lot. The second thing was, I did that and it was the best thing I ever did. Now, one person over months and months and months told me it was a bad idea. I went and did it. Still, some of the best months of my entire life, right? And I don't think I'd be doing what I do now if I didn't do that, because I realized on that trip, like, I can't work a normal job. I can't work for someone else. I have to be location independent. I have to be able to travel. I have to be able to move. I have to be able to do whatever it is that I want. And I realized that on that trip. Then 5 years later, I ended up, a couple of years later, I ended up getting a girlfriend. And then my girlfriend and I, 5 years later in 2017, backpacked for 6 months together. And we were able to do it because we built businesses that we could make money online. And so what is the most sensible or reasonable or secure route is never actually that route. It's like, what do you want? What is the thing that makes you feel the most alive? And that's what we really have to listen to deep within ourselves. Because if you don't follow it, it's going to bug you for the rest of your life. Like, if you wanted to go and travel and back out Europe for 3 months and you fast forward 20 years and don't do it now, and you fast forward 20 years, it's going to eat you up inside that you didn't do it. It is never a bad idea to do something like that. And so it's different for every single person listening to this podcast. There's hundreds of thousands of you that are listening to this podcast right now. There are hundreds of thousands of different desires and hopes and dreams and passions and purposes. I'm going to tell you what I tell you all of the time is it's okay not to know what your passion or purpose is right now, but it is not okay to not be in constant pursuit to find that. And so why are you alive? Why the hell are you here? What the hell do you want? You've got to figure it out. You've got to decide what you want, and you've got to put every ounce of energy into it, because the last thing you want to do is not do it and then find out too late that you should have done it. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Once again, the only way that we grow is from you guys sharing this podcast. And so if you would share it, I would love it and appreciate you from the bottom of my heart so we can continue to keep growing. And with that, I'm leaving the same way I leave every single episode. Make it your mission, make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Self-help books and conferences and journaling and meditating might not be what you need. And what I'm going to teach you today is a strategy that I think is going to help you improve your life quickly. It's a perspective of a way that you should look at the world to grow as fast as you possibly can. See, I believe that every single thing that happens to you and happens to me in our lives, every single moment of our life, good, bad, neutral, whatever label we want to put on it, I believe that it is brought to us as an opportunity for us to learn. I believe that our life is a classroom and that our soul is here to learn, and that your life is the perfectly crafted curriculum for you to learn what you need to learn while you're here. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what happens after this. I don't know what happens before this. I'll give you a couple just random fun things to think about. But the problem is that most people don't see life that way. They don't see life as a classroom. The biggest misconceptions that I have found about personal development, and where I really screwed up in personal development, was I thought personal development was sitting down to read a book. And so I have 400 personal development books and mindset and business and leadership books that I've read over my lifetime. I thought that it was sitting down to meditate and getting myself to learn to be quiet. I thought that it was going to a conference and jumping around like an idiot for a few hours every single day. I thought that it was journaling. I thought that it was listening to a podcast. And all of those things are great. They are an aspect of personal development. I do think that they're needed. I think all of them are amazing, but they're not the main thing. They're not the only thing. People think like, oh, I've got to wake up and I've got to have my morning routine and I got to get my 30 minutes of PD in, PD personal development. I got to get my 30 minutes of personal development. And I got to read, or I got to meditate, or I got to journal, or I got to listen to a podcast. And, I got to get my personal development in. Those are fine. But the real place where personal development happens and where you learn the most, if you have a keen sense of paying attention to what's happening in your life, is your life itself is where your personal development is. That's where your lessons come from. That's where the work has to be put in. Some people will sit down and they'll read a book and they'll be like, I just read a book on meditation and being more zen and I feel great. I got my personal development in. And then 20 minutes later, they go and they get into a massive argument with their spouse. They don't realize that the book was not their personal development for the day. The argument with their spouse was their greatest opportunity for personal development that day. Why was there an argument? Why was I triggered in that moment? What was it about that moment that triggered me? What triggered her? Why were we triggered in that moment? And to sit back and go, that's really interesting. What can I do to learn and get better? Because the book is great. Yeah, I love reading. I think reading's great. I think it's definitely something we should all do. But the argument with the spouse is the universe going, hey, you need to work on this thing. And I'm going to bring you this lesson over and over and over again. So you got triggered. You were in an argument. Why was there a trigger for you? That trigger, that moment of being triggered is one of the biggest opportunities in your life to learn. A trigger, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you know this. When you're triggered, it is a place where you are not free. You are hung up somewhere. And being triggered by somebody else is not somebody else's fault. It's not like, oh, they triggered me. It's their fault. Boo-hoo, I'm a victim. No, being triggered is our fault. If I'm triggered, it's not somebody else's fault because I was the one that was triggered. We were triggered. And I want this to really hit home. A trigger is not your enemy. It's not something that you're trying to avoid. It's an invitation for you to go deeper within yourself. It's a spotlight showing you a wound that hasn't healed yet and might need some more work and some more care. And if someone else doesn't get triggered by the exact same thing, then it's proof that the issue isn't out there. It's inside of me. It's inside of you. It's inside of us. It's not a flaw. It's a flashlight. It's shining its light on what you need to work on next. And so that's the biggest thing. Were you cut off on the drive to work after you got done with your 20 minutes of meditation and you got pissed, and now the next 15 minutes on the way to work, you're cussing at this person who's in front of you? No, it's not the meditation that's the self-development. It's that triggering right there that's the self-development. And you have to understand, it's very important. This is the way I always put myself in perspective. I'm one of those people who just really likes to play devil's advocate for myself. Like I look at one side and I'm like, yeah, but if that's what you think, what else is a possibility? So I think to myself, okay, I was triggered by X, Y, Z. If I were to take somebody else, there a chance that somebody else in the world would not be triggered by X, Y, Z? Yeah. Okay, well, then that's the case. It shows me that it's not outside of me. It shows me that it's inside of me, the thing that I need to work on. So it's not the trigger. It's not the other person. It's not getting cut off. It's not my spouse. It's me. So you just got to think of that for a second. How can we work through it? Did your spouse get triggered? Why? Where did that come from for them? Can we also help them go through it? And you can listen to this podcast, and I love that you listen to this podcast, but it's nothing compared to your real life. You can be all excited. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're on the way to Target with your child. You're listening to this podcast, you're on the way to Target, and 30 minutes after this podcast gets done, your child has a temper tantrum in Target on aisle 7, and it just pisses you off, right? You're like, oh my God, they always do this. Or maybe you're just like freaking out. What is this person, that person that's over there, is she judging me? That moment's your dojo. That moment is your classroom. Target, with your kids screaming, that old woman that's judging you at the end of the aisle, and you're starting to freak out. Oh my gosh, is she judging me? What does she think of me? Does she think I'm a terrible parent? My child's driving me crazy. That's the moment where you learn peace, not by listening to my podcast about peace or how to meditate. You learn peace in the moment where it's hitting the fan and it's all over the walls. Not when you're in the Himalayan mountains. No. Here and now. That's where you learn it. You have to believe me that moment is a much better place to learn and grow and to have your own personal development than anything else. Can you learn to keep calm in the middle of any storm, whatever that storm might look like? That child having a temper tantrum is the universe coming to you through your child saying, hey, here's what you need to work on right now. Do you think about that for a second? Like, how interesting is that? Maybe, yeah, it is my child that's throwing a temper tantrum, but maybe I have too much of a short temper and the universe is going, hey, you know what you need to work on today? You know what's really holding you back? Yeah, your short fuse. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have your child have a temper tantrum on aisle 7, and I'm going to have the lady at the end of the aisle judge you so that you can work on your inner peace. Did you take the universe up on the opportunity? You know, if your boyfriend or girlfriend forgets to call you, they were supposed to call you 2 hours ago. Maybe they're just out having fun with their friends. Maybe they're out mountain biking and they don't have their phone on. They don't have service. And it triggers you, and it triggers your fear of abandonment because of some issue that's unhealed from your childhood. And you get mad at them and you're like, it's your fault you didn't call me. It's your fault. No. That's your trigger. Sure, you can blame it on them, but you were the one that was triggered. And so you got to ask yourself, like, what's this feeling reminding me of? Okay, I'm really triggered that my boyfriend hasn't called me in a while. He went mountain biking. Is he okay? Did he get injured? Is he with some other girl right now? Whatever it might be, right? And you ask yourself, like, what's this feeling reminding me of? Like, who's the real person that I'm upset with? Is it my partner or is it my parent from 30 years ago? And you start realizing that it's the universe, once again, coming to you through your partner to show you where you still have things that you need to work on, unhealed trauma. And when you start to really see this, and I really see this, you go, oh my God, almost every single moment of my life is a lesson. Your life is the perfectly crafted curriculum for you to evolve into the highest version of yourself. And guess what? The universe is just going to keep giving you the same lesson over and over and over again until you pass it. That's why you keep dating the same person or acting the same way or being triggered by the exact same people, or you keep self-sabotaging in some sort of way. And so you've got to learn the lesson, or else the opportunity to get the lesson is going to keep on coming up until you work through it. You know, I believe, and this is my belief, you don't have to take this on, I'm completely fine, but I'll just tell you my explanation, right? I believe that our souls, this thing that's inhabiting this body of mine, took this body in this exact life to learn and go through whatever it needs to go through to get on to the next level or the next plane or whatever might happen after this thing. So everything that happens to me, because my soul chose it, so everything that happens to me was chosen by me. Not me, Rob, but my soul. Because Rob was just a name that was given to me when I was born. You know, I was named after my dad. The way I like to see it, and I imagine, is like your soul sitting down and it's writing down and drafting a college syllabus, basically. Before you were born, and, you know, I'll say, we'll take my soul, right? It's like, oh, it's just sitting there. And, you know, in this life, I want to learn, compassion. I want to learn forgiveness. I want to learn some courage that's in there. Okay, if I want to learn compassion, if I want to learn some forgiveness, if I want to learn courage, if I want to learn all that, okay, give me some childhood abandonment issues. Maybe being really hard on myself. Give me some money struggles. Money struggles would be good. Maybe a toxic relationship or two. Maybe a couple loved ones dying. And my soul goes, yep, that one looks good. Okay, I'll take that body. And I know it sounds crazy, but what if it was true? What if every challenge is a custom designed lesson for your expansion? Wouldn't that be interesting? Love, loss, sadness, happiness, anger, frustration, joy, every single one of those feelings that comes up inside of us is some sort of opportunity for me to learn and for me to grow. And any time that we're just so caught up in the moment, we don't take ourselves out of the moment, we can miss those lessons. We can miss our opportunities to grow. And I understand you're not going to be perfect in everything that you do. You're going to lose yourself to being triggered at some point in time. I get that. And then maybe later on down the road, you're going to go, oh man, like I really lost myself. I shouldn't have said that to her. I shouldn't have done that thing. Well, what can I learn from that? And I want you just to realize that the whole point of what I'm trying to say here, and I really want to get across, is that the highest version of you, the best version of you, I'm sorry, but it's not found in a book. It's on the other side of a breakdown. The highest version of you is not found in a morning meditation. It's in getting cut off on the road on the way to work. The highest version of you is not going to a conference. All of these things are important. They're all very important. It's where you learn more. Really, where all of these things come into practice, you really start to work through and understand about yourself, is in these moments where you're triggered, where things happen to you, and where you lose yourself so that you can find yourself. And so what you want to do is notice when you get caught up in something, notice the feeling. Breathe that feeling in. Don't resist it. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling really, really angry right now. Don't resist it. What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling extremely angry. Okay. Why am I feeling this way? This is where you really start to figure out about yourself. This is like the emotional alchemy is what it is, where you turn your pain into wisdom. Wouldn't that be nice? Like that's really the point of pain, is to give us more wisdom. And so when you feel that sadness, when you feel that anger, when you feel yourself being, absolutely frustrated about everything that's going on, you breathe it in. You don't resist it. You feel it and you say, what am I feeling? What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? And that's where you can turn your pain into wisdom. The wisest people in the world are not the ones who have read the most books. They're the ones who have learned the most from life. They're usually the ones who have been through the most pain and turned it into wisdom. And they're not just like feeling the feelings. Oh, just sit in a corner and just close your eyes and feel your feelings. No, you're actually learning to decode your own life. This is where like the real transformation actually happens. And so when you look at it, being triggered is a gift. Being mad is a gift. Feeling absolute joy is a gift. Feel all of them. Don't resist them. Your resistance doesn't help you. Your resistance to those dark feelings or those hard feelings, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help your loved ones. It doesn't help your children. It doesn't help the world. It's showing you where you're not free. And this is a moment where you can really take a step back and you can learn from it. Because personal development is not something that you schedule. It's something that you live. The argument is a lesson. The trigger is what teaches you. Your life is the curriculum. So stop treating personal growth like it's just a hobby. Every moment of your life is personal development. You can't escape the classroom, so you might as well start learning the true lessons while you're here. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Based off of what you've been watching recently, YouTube thinks that you should watch this video right here. It's actually picked for you from YouTube. And if you want to subscribe so you don't miss any more episodes, click that right there. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be talking about how to love yourself more. Oh, doesn't that sound great? Now, that sounds corny and weird and, oh, I'm going to love myself more. But really, it's quite simple more than anything else. I'm going to talk about how to love yourself more, but I'm also going to talk about why people don't love themselves. And this is a thing that I've gone really deep into looking at. And why wouldn't someone love themselves in the first place? And so really what it comes down to is wanting to love yourself more is not really about loving yourself. What it comes down to is accepting yourself, because love is basically present when you decide to accept yourself. When you stop hating yourself and you stop not accepting yourself, love just happens to be there. It's not really about love. It's really about the acceptance. The barrier to self-love is self-acceptance. So if you can accept yourself fully, it makes it so much easier to love yourself, because behind the self-judgment, behind the critic that you have is love. And the doorway to go through there is by accepting yourself. You don't see a baby or a child that's a toddler and they have self-love issues, right? I've never seen a 2-year-old or a baby that just has I'm dealing with self-love issues, which means somehow it's learned somewhere in their life. So if you were if you have self-love issues or you have an inner critic or you're really hard on yourself, that was learned. That was not something that you were born with. And so why is it so hard to accept ourselves? Really, because we've been socialized, right? There's many different ways that we're socialized. I like to call it, if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, domesticated. The same way that you have like a domesticated cat, we are domesticated people. We're basically domesticated children that are a little bit older is what we are right now, right? And so it's understandable. Parents are under pressure to socialize you, to make you fit in so that you can grow up and have a quote unquote great life and fit in with society. And also parents have to socialize you and domesticate you because kids are nuts, right? So it's also a safety thing. You ever seen a kid that's just like, I'm going to jump off this 2-story wall. And you're like, no, you're not. Like, there's a lot of stuff that really has to happen where a child needs to kind of fit in. And I don't know, and I've thought about this for years and years and years, I don't know if there's a way around it. For those of you guys that are parents, I don't know if there's a way around it. There's going to be some sort of constructs and pressure to be socialized. And there's also going to be, even if you were the perfect parent, a child is still going to go through some sort of trauma, whether it's society, whether it's a teacher, whether it's bullying, whether it's their friends that are just a crappy little teenage kids. I don't know. It's like, everyone's going to get punched in the face at some point in time by life. And that's just their path that they're on. And so when you look at a child and how they come into this world, child doesn't really fit in with the constructs, right? I remember about a year ago, 8 months ago probably, I was out to dinner with my business partner, his wife, his kids, and just out of nowhere, his 3-year-old just decides he wants to scream at the top of his lungs inside of a restaurant at a nice dinner. And it's like, that doesn't really fit in with what we've been taught, which is nice restaurant, quiet, keep to yourself. And he just, not for any reason, wasn't crying, he just wanted to scream, just let it all out. And he has to be shushed, right? So that's like hey, no, don't do that. You can't do that. Hey, you can't do that. Like how many times do we hear as a kid, you can't do that. No, don't do that. Good boys and girls don't do that. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. We hear this over and over again, right? It's just like all of these little teeny tiny things add up to us thinking that there's something wrong with us, right? So a lot of times parents, we had this as children, but also sometimes you might do this as well. A parent, a lot of times will emotionally reward or punish a child based off of how they act. So this is really important for you to understand yourself, but it's also really important if you have children or want to have children. One of the things that parents do is they will emotionally reward or punish a child based off of how they act. Oh, if you're a good little boy or girl, you're going to get my love. If you're a bad little boy or girl, I will remove my love, which is like the scariest thing in the world for a child, right? There's usually not a whole lot of reasoning for this process either. So there's not like, the parent sitting down and saying, honey, I'm going to remove my love from you because you did X, Y, Z, right? There's no reasoning for this process. And so a child doesn't understand a lot of times what they did wrong. The amount of times, and this is, just a byproduct of what I do and the profession that I'm in, I hear a lot of stories from people who talk about, their parents, they did something wrong. The child, they did something wrong and they were reprimanded and they have no idea what they did wrong. And so what that ends up building up in somebody is, I can't trust myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what's going on. It makes it really hard to be able to trust themselves, accept themselves, love themselves later on down the road. So a lot of times parents will use an emotional reward or punishment based off of how the child acts. If you're good, I'm going to give you my love. If you're bad, I'm going to remove it. And there's no reasoning for this process. Child doesn't understand really what's going on. And what they really realize more than anything else, as a child will realize is that they, a lot of times, are their truest self. They'll scream when they want to, they'll run, they'll be loud, they'll throw tantrums, all of this stuff. And at some point in time, this kind of happens, I think, for everybody, a child realizes that certain ways that is natural to them, like they are in their natural state, is not acceptable. So think about this for a second. We learn that our natural state, screaming, running around, having fun, laughing, we learn 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, that is not acceptable. And so what happens is we start to break trust with ourselves. We can't trust ourselves. Oh my gosh, my parents are telling me that this is wrong. Well, they're adults, they're older, they must know better than I am, so there must be something wrong with me. And we start to think there must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. And the average child is reprimanded 8 times more than they're praised. Think about this for a second. Parents, think about this. The average child is reprimanded 8 times more than they're praised. And so a child is not consciously thinking this, but subconsciously it's going in their mind. They're thinking, I'm not good enough the way I am. The way I am, my mom does not love me. The way I am, my father doesn't love me. There must be something wrong with me, because they're reprimanded 8 times more than they're praised. And naturally, when somebody reprimands their child, the child feels like the love is being taken from them, which is emotionally the worst thing that can happen to a child. So 8 times more, child thinks they don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not smart enough. My mom doesn't love me. I can't trust myself. These are all subconscious thoughts. These are not conscious thoughts coming into their head. 8 times more, they're thinking that they can't trust themselves. They're not good. They're not a good little boy the way that they are, versus I'm loved, I'm accepted. And so the child, what do? Subconsciously, they realize they have to change themselves. They realize they have to change themselves. They have to let go of certain aspects of themselves based on what their parents tell them, the way that they see their parents, them fitting in with their parents, the way that they see they were supposed to fit in with society, the way that they interact with their brothers and sisters, what teachers tell them to do and say. And so a child, in order to fit in this society that we live in, has to change itself. And in the changing of itself, they think there's something wrong with them, which is why so many people have problems with self-love. All a child cares about, I'm going to make it as simple as possible. I've done a lot of early childhood development research, all of this stuff, is does my mom love me? Does my dad love me? That's it. And it's going through their subconscious all the time. If you're the type of person who reprimands your child by basically removing love from them, guarantee you it's going to come later on down the road where they're not going to love themselves, right? So if you're the person who's also thinking to yourself, man, my parents were like this. My parents removed love from me. My parents reprimanded me a lot. My parents said, shut up. Kids are supposed to be seen, not heard. If you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I heard this when I was younger, and now you're struggling with self-love issues and you're struggling to accept yourself, that's the reason why. Is because we have basically, it's been ingrained in us accidentally. Nobody did this on purpose. It's not like anybody is an asshole and trying to do this to children on purpose. It's just kind of the way that things work in society and the way that children are raised, is we think to ourselves, I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't trust myself. I need to change myself in order for my parents to love me. That's always going through a child's mind. And so, when I'm having fun and I'm running around in public, my mom yells at me. So therefore, this aspect of myself is wrong, right? How many times have you seen somebody, maybe you've done this with your children on accident, maybe you've seen somebody do this, where a kid is just in like full, all-out expression of who they are, running around, screaming, laughing, having the best time, but the parent wants them to be quiet, and they yell at them to be quiet. What that child is not consciously thinking, but thinking in their mind is, I am not acceptable the way that I truly am. I must change myself to be acceptable to get my parents' love. That's really what it breaks down to. I'm not accepted as I naturally am. If I am acting, the way I'm acting is not right, therefore I must be wrong. And so we learn at a very young age the socialization process, that we're not good enough as we are, and we must be a certain way in order to get our parents' love, in order to get society's love, in order to fit in order to be quiet. And if that certain way is not me, the result is I feel unworthiness because of socialization. And so your personality is built, this is really important for people to kind of really get in. Your personality, a lot of times, and obviously I'm overgeneralizing, but from what I've seen of a lot of people, not every single person's this way, but a lot of people, your personality is built on repressing who you truly are. Think about that one for a second. Your personality has been built upon repressing who you truly are. Somehow I am bad, and I need to look to my parents to see if I'm right, to see if I have their validation. I need my parents' validation. And when we get older, we're always seeking our parents' validation, right? Do you love me? Do you love me? If I get good grades, if I'm number one and beat everybody else up, if I'm, beat every other child in grades, if I look good enough in front of the class, if I end up winning the spelling bee, if I am the best in baseball, and we start thinking to ourselves, this is the way that we have to get our parents' love. This way I have to get society's love. And then, as you get older, it's like, do I look sexy enough? And then did I get enough likes on Instagram? If I make a lot of money, people if I make a lot of money, will you finally accept me? Will you love me because I can't love myself? Will you accept me for who I am because I can't fully accept myself? And we're trying to do or become something that we feel will get us accepted. And so the issue is that we can validate ourselves based off of who we are and not need anybody else's approval. So really what it comes down to is when people are like, I struggle with self-love, I'm like, you don't actually struggle with self-love. You struggle to accept who you truly are because at some point in time, you learned who you truly are is not acceptable. And so what it comes back to is you need to learn how to accept yourself. It's not our looks, our money, our cars, our jobs, our bodies, or social media followings. It's not. Never will be, right? And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to get other people's approval of yourself so that you can finally approve yourself. But you can't look to other people to approve you in order for you to finally approve yourself. You just have to appreciate who you currently are. If you're short, if you're fat, if you're skinny, if you're broke as hell, whatever it is, you have to learn to accept yourself first before you make any changes. Acceptance first, no judging. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, you're a little bit chunky. You're a little bit short. We can work with this. But I know the soul that's behind there, and I appreciate you for who you are. It's just like you don't go into a forest and see a bunch of trees and you're like, oh, that one's fat. Oh, that one's tall. That one's skinny. That one's got broken branches. Ew. You don't judge trees, but we judge ourselves and then we judge others. This one's better. This one's worse. This one's better. This one's worse. And we do that out of our own insecurities. Is because the reason why we judge other people is because it is an insecurity that we have because we don't fully accept ourselves. And so sometimes when we look at someone and we have to judge them, the reason why we're judging them is so that we can feel like we're above them. Like if we push them down, then I'm above them. Really what it comes down to, there's no one that you're competing with, right? Allow yourself to be a human being. Flaws, everything, and then learn to accept who you are. Not by achieving, not by buying things, not by the makeup, not by the fucking Instagram filter that you're using. Learn to accept yourself behind all of that stuff. Rediscover yourself. Rediscover your inner child. Like, what do you love to do? Do more of that. Like, one of the things I think that people should do as you become an adult is start to rediscover who you were as a child. You've been socialized. You've been told to go on this path, and you've been on this path for a while. And let's be real, this path that we go on in life can be really freaking stressful and struggling. And it's like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. Right? Like, what if, okay, yeah, you've made a little bit of money, you've had some success, maybe you've got a little bit of, cushion and money right now. Who were you as a child? What did you love to do? Can you go back and rediscover that? Can you just find what it was that you used to love to do? What would that look like for you? What would it look like for you to decide to start to go back, see what that little child loved, start doing it more, and start accepting yourself? Because really what it comes down to is no matter how crazy you are, no matter how ugly you are, no matter how fat you are, no matter how twisted and demented your comedic style is, you have to just learn to accept yourself. Because love is this thing that is omnipresent when you just decide. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be talking about how to love yourself more. Oh, doesn't that sound great? Now, that sounds corny and weird and, oh, I'm going to love myself more. But really, it's quite simple more than anything else. I'm going to talk about how to love yourself more, but I'm also going to talk about why people don't love themselves. And this is a thing that I've gone really deep into looking at. And why wouldn't someone love themselves in the first place? And so really what it comes down to is wanting to love yourself more is not really about loving yourself. What it comes down to is accepting yourself. Let's just call it what it is. Overthinking is a full-time job that you have that has zero benefits to it. And you run through every scenario in your head like it's life or death, and you obsess over what you should have said or what you might do or what their probably thinking about you, or what could go wrong, or what could happen, or what could not happen. And you don't just overthink the big things. You've been overthinking for so long that you don't just overthink the big things, you overthink the small things. You overthink everything. It has become a habit for you that is just like an addiction. And you have no idea probably how to break it. And it's not just a personality trait, it's also a nervous system adaptation that you have gotten from childhood in some sort of way. And over time, it has morphed and shifted into something way bigger than how it originated. And so I just want you to know that if you're an overthinker, join the club. That's like 90% of people in the world. And you're not broken. You're not indecisive. You're not too sensitive. It's just at some point in time, you have to understand, probably in childhood, your brain learned that overthinking was safer than doing. And so just take a step back and think about that for a second. Your brain learned that to overthink something was safer than actually doing something. And chances are you learned it a long time ago, and it's probably coming from your childhood. And, in your childhood, something happened. Maybe you did something and you made a joke, or you were loud, or you decided to dance in public. And you might have been reprimanded for it, or scolded for it, or made fun of for it, or something in some sort of way. And you felt a little bit of hurt in some sort of way from whatever that was, whether you're reprimanded or scolded or made fun of. And it made you pause the next time. And you learned you needed to pause and think about what you were about to do. Because last time you didn't think about it and you just let your true self come out, you felt pain. And you learned, well, you know what? I should probably think about this the next time I'm going to do it. And so I want you to think about that. When in your childhood did you learn to overthink before you actually did something, or so that you wouldn't do something? Like, when did you learn that what you did was wrong, or that you messed up in some sort of way? Think about that for a second. And then we'll dive into it, and it's going to probably mold and shift as we go into today's episode. So let's dive into it, because I don't want to talk surface level with you. I don't want you to just be like, oh, hey, stop thinking, stop overthinking. Don't worry about it. Man, you got it. High five. Like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to actually find the roots of it. I want to try to pull it out of the roots with you, okay? So let's start talking first off about why you overthink. It kind of starts at childhood, like we were just talking about. When you were little, your brain basically had one job, and your brain still has one job, and it's to keep you safe. It doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about your success. It doesn't care about your satisfaction. It's not here to help you take action. It's here to keep you safe. And in childhood, safety, the word safety, and thinking about it, wasn't just physical. It was definitely physical safety, but it's also emotional safety. And we will be right back. Hey, I want to interrupt today's episode to tell you about my sponsor. It is me, myself. If you didn't know, I obviously have some coaching programs outside of the podcast to help you learn and grow and become a better version of yourself. Step-by-step programs and processes to help you become better in your life and create the life that you want. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to coachwithrob.com. Once again, coachwithrob.com. Check it out. And let's get back to the episode. And so if your parents were inconsistent, or they were reactive, or even overreactive, you might have learned to kind of tiptoe around your parents. You might have learned to kind of walk on eggshells around your parents so that you didn't do something quote unquote wrong. You might have learned, that you were praised only when you succeeded. And maybe you learned to obsess over things. Or, you felt like maybe you were a burden, or you felt like you were too much, or you were too loud, or you were too emotional, and you learned to shrink in some sort of ways. And, when you look at this, what happens is you learn to over anticipate things that could happen, to kind of look into the future and say, okay, if I do this thing, this could happen, but also I could get yelled at, I could get made fun of, I could be reprimanded in some sort of ways. And you learn to stop and pause before you took action and think about it, which, if you do it long enough, turns into overthinking. And so in this case, when you get hurt or scolded or made fun of, or whatever it might have been, what does your nervous system do? Well, your nervous system learns to adapt. And it got really good at playing out every single possible scenario. Your brain and your nervous system are like, hold on, let's stop for a second. Don't let your true self out. Don't be too loud. Don't be too emotional. Don't tell them what you actually feel. Don't dance in public. Don't run around in the rain, whatever it might have been that happened. Let me pause for a second. Let me think about it. And it learned to adapt and to start getting really good at thinking. And then that thinking turns into overthinking. And that thinking turns into overthinking. And you think to yourself unconsciously, if I can think through every possibility, I can stay safe. I can stay in control. And that's what you're really worried about. If I could stay in control of a situation, I can stay safe. And so in psychology, this is what we call hypervigilance. It's a trauma response where your brain becomes wired to constantly scan for threats, even when there's actually no threats that are present. And so overthinking is just basically your younger child that's still trying to protect you in some sort of way. Like let's say, I've heard of many different times where like a child is having a great time and they're dancing in public and they're having a whole lot of fun. And then their dad is like, hey, you're being too loud, shut up. Or children are meant to be seen, not heard. And they learn, oh, I'm not accepted as I truly am. I need to be somebody different. And that inner child is still what's kind of running the show and trying to protect you. It is a survival strategy that is dressed up in adult clothes, basically. So then you think, well, what if I mess this up? Well, if I mess this up, there's going to be some sort of failure or there's going to be punishment that's going to pop up. Well, what if they're mad at me? Well, then I'm afraid of the fear of abandonment or the fear of rejection, the fear of other people's opinions. I need to find the perfect answer. If you think that in your head, maybe you have the fear of not being good enough or smart enough or being able to do the thing right. If you think to yourself, like, what if I choose wrong? I have the wrong choice. Well, it might be the fear of losing love from other people, or it might be the fear of scrutiny or the fear of approval. And so I want you to kind of really let this sink in. Like your current overthinking right now as an adult is your childhood self trying to keep you safe in adult scenarios. Think about that for a second. It's you stuck at 7 years old mentally at some place in your brain trying to run adult scenarios and hopefully make things go well. It's like taking a 7-year-old and be like, hey, drive the car. You're not going to let a 7-year-old drive the car. That's something that an adult should be doing, right? So your current overthinking is your childhood self that is stuck in time, trying to keep you safe in current adult scenarios. And so, if you zoom in and you actually look at what's happening in your brain, there's a few different parts that are lighting up. There's the amygdala, which I talk about a lot. That's your fear center. That's where the fear comes from in your brain. That thing scans for danger at all points in time. And then it's looking for what is wrong. What could I do wrong? What could be wrong? What dangers exist in my reality? And it triggers the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And it gets hijacked easily when you're unsure, or you're stressed, or you're emotionally activated, or you're noticing a pattern of something that may have happened before in the past. So that's the first thing that kind of lights up. The second part of your brain that lights up is the prefrontal cortex, which is your rational brain, which helps you plan and problem solve and make decisions. And so it gets hijacked when your amygdala is in overdrive. So it's saying, oh my God, there's something to fear. Let me think about all of the ways I could possibly get myself out of this thing that there might be, that I'm triggered by in some sort of way. And so your amygdala is lighting up, your prefrontal cortex is lighting up, and then the other part of your brain that's lighting up is called the default mode network. It is your brain's daydream circuit. It activates during rest, but in overthinkers, they've actually found that it kind of runs wild. And so you think that you're resting, but your brain is just going crazy. So it's your fear centers are lighting up, your planning centers and thinking centers are lighting up, and then your daydreaming centers are lighting up as well, which is you daydreaming into the future. If I do this, this could happen. If I do this, this could happen. And you start basically thinking about all of the problems that could possibly happen or all the things that you could do wrong. And then you start thinking about them and you start overthinking them. And now you're stuck in this vicious circle of just nothing happening, but your brain is going 1,000,000 miles a minute. And so what's really interesting when you look inside of the brain of somebody who's an overthinker is overthinking actually mimics productivity. So people who are overthinking actually feel like they're doing something helpful. Like they feel like they're protecting themselves in some sort of way. But what it does is it increases the cortisol in your body, which is the stress hormone, which then keeps your body in this loop. So it's like you have something that triggers you, you start stressing out about it, your brain starts to actually create more cortisol. That more cortisol creates more stress, which makes you more hyper aware, which makes you more likely to look out for things that could threaten you. And that's how this cycle of overthinking actually happens. So the more that you overthink, the more that you do this and you start to do it over and over, it becomes a pattern and it becomes a habit. And as it becomes a habit, your brain, and you do it more and more and more, your brain actually builds pathways for it, which means the more that you do it, the more likely you are to do it again, and the more automatic it becomes. That's just a downward spiral, is it? That sounds like it sucks. And so that's how it starts. That's how it happens in your current life. And that's how it's built inside of your brain. And so let's talk about how to stop overthinking and not gaslight yourself in the process. Because stopping overthinking isn't like about flipping a switch. You have 20, 30, 40 years of patterns and neural pathways built up. This is about changing it over time, and it's about rewiring how you feel safe in the world. Because once again, if you're 37 years old and this comes from an original moment at 7 years old, and obviously has happened many times since then, you have 30 years of patterns and habits where you don't necessarily feel safe in the world. I want to talk to you about how to actually help yourself feel more safe. So the first thing, step number one, is what you need to do is you need to name what's really going on. What you need to do is ask yourself, what am I trying to protect myself from right now? Is it rejection? Is it being wrong? Is it being a failure? Is it feeling shame or guilt? Is it being ostracized or judged by other people? You have to understand, if you're not doing something that you want to be doing, there's some sort of fear behind it. And so what you need to do is you need to find the fear. You need to bring it to the light, because your overthinking is always just trying to protect you from something. So you're not crazy. What you're really just unconsciously trying to do is stay safe. Even if you consciously know that what you want to do is safe, unconsciously, there's a part of you that's like, no. Remember when we were 7 years old, and then 9, and then 10, and 12, and 14, all of these things happen. These could be happening in this moment. This is why you need to overthink and overplan. But you have to understand, at some point in time in your childhood, you did something, maybe you got yelled at, you felt like your parents' love was retracted from you, or you were made fun of in class or something, and you didn't like it. So you learned to question yourself to protect yourself. So you see that? It's not something to battle. It's something that exists inside of you to protect you. And so what you want to do is you want to find the fear, and you want to bring the fear to the light. Fear that is brought to the light immediately has less power over you. That's one of the things that I found with so many people, is that as I'm coaching them and I'm working through them, like, if we're on a live in Mindset University and someone's saying, hey, I have trouble procrastinating and I'm overthinking, and I say, okay, what are you afraid of? They're like, I'm not really sure. And we find out what they're afraid of, and they write it down and they talk about it. They realize it's never as bad as their brain actually makes it out to be. And so that's the first step, is you really need to understand, and name, what is it that's going on inside of your head. Step number 2 is to soothe your nervous system before doing anything else. You cannot think clearly from a dysregulated state. It's like when your emotions are high, your logic is low. So you need to calm yourself down first. It could take 2 minutes. Before any big decision, just do my favorite, and you could do any type of breathing, is just 4-8 breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 8 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds, in through the nose for 4 seconds, out through the mouth for 8 seconds. And then you can just shake your hands, shake your body. You can do some tapping, get your fists and have your fists go all over your body, and you can tap out all of your muscles, try to get the cortisol out of your muscles. You can splash cold water in your face. You can go for a 5-minute walk. Movement is a nervous system reset. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to change your state. You were in a fight or flight state, and you're trying to get yourself out of that state before you do anything else. So you must get your nervous system out of that fight or flight so you can think clearly again. So that's step number 2, soothe the nervous system, soothe it. Step number 3 is to externalize the chaos, right? Chaos is usually all in your brain. Overthinking thrives in your head. So you've got to get it out. You've got to get it out of your head. And so when you get clear on these things, the clarity behind what's going on will usually strip it of its power. And so what I recommend is that you do a brain dump. You just get a scrap piece of paper, a new sheet of paper, whatever it is, and you dump every thought, every fear, everything that's running through your head, put it on paper, no filters, and put everything down. And then take another piece of paper and you want to draw a line down the middle of it. And the left side, I want you to write down what I know is true, like absolute truth. And on the right side, what you want to write down is what I'm assuming will happen or that I'm afraid of. So what I know is true on the left, on the right, what I'm assuming will happen or what I'm afraid of. And then what you do is you look at your list of everything that you're fearing, and then you write down if any of them are true, most of them are not, pretty much none of them will be most likely. And on the right-hand side is what I'm assuming will happen or what I am afraid of. Most of your fears are going to line up in that category. And so you're going, oh, first off, I'm just noticing that I'm just making a whole bunch of assumptions. And so what this does is this helps your prefrontal cortex re-engage and start sorting real data from fear stories. And a lot of times, once people put it all on paper and actually see it, I can't tell you how many times I've done this, where I've had people take all of the chaos in their head and put it on paper, and they're like, oh, no, this is bullshit. Like, I don't even believe this. Like, this is ridiculous. And so one of the things that's really, really important is actually put it on paper and externalize the chaos, because you'll realize you'll get much more clear on it. A lot of times it has a lot less power on you, over you, just by writing it down. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is to talk out loud to your inner protector. That overthinking voice that's going on in your head, like I said, it's not your enemy. It's a scared part of you that's trying to protect you. It's the voice of that child that was wounded in your past in some sort of way and doesn't want you to be your true self and doesn't want you to dance in the rain because you got in trouble for it when you were 6 years old. So you want to speak to it, like speak out loud to the inner protector. And you can say stuff like, hey, I see you're trying to protect me. I know you're scared, but I've got this now. Like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's safe. I need you to chill out for a bit. And it's okay. It's not weird. You might think it's weird the first couple of times, but it's not weird to talk to yourself out loud. You'll actually notice your nervous system start to calm down. And this is called inner reparenting, like giving yourself the emotional safety that you didn't get as a kid and that you might have not gotten in that moment where there was a breakaway from your true self. And so once you just see it as something that's trying to protect yourself, you don't see it as an enemy. It's not something that you need to be at battle with. It's just a scared part of you. It is a part of you. It will be there probably forever. It's just a scared part. And it's okay to be scared sometimes, but you just have to decide, like, right now, I'm going to be brave. So that's step number 4. And then step number 5 is to build trust through micro actions. Like, you don't overcome overthinking by thinking less or by thinking smarter. That's not really going to happen. You overcome it by acting more in small, consistent ways in the direction of the person of who you want to be. And every time that you make a choice to follow through, to do it anyways, to let go of I'm not good enough, you prove to your nervous system that it's safe to step outside of your comfort zone. And that starts to show your nervous system it's okay to do the things that we're afraid of. We're not going to die. Maybe we can chill out a little bit. Action and taking action breeds clarity. Overthinking just breeds more and more confusion. So that's step number 5. And then step number 6, the last step, just let it be messy. Like, you're not going to stop thinking overnight. You're literally trying to rewire decades of things that have kept you safe. And so it's going to be clunky. Let it be clunky. Let it be imperfect. And when you do something in the right direction, like, celebrate your tiny wins. Look for tiny bits of data to prove that you're safe, that you're doing it right, so that you can see those and see, okay, I am safe, that you can do things that you're afraid of. You can see that you can step out of your comfort zone. It might be that you still spiraled out of control, but this time it was for 5 minutes instead of 2 hours. That's a win. You made a decision to do something without asking 3 different people. You made your own decision. That's a win. You spoke up even when you were terrified and your voice was shaking. That's a win. Like, every one of those moments is a new neural pathway proving to yourself that it's safe. Every one of those moments is healing in some sort of way. And so I want you to understand, like, you're not broken because you're overthinking. You're brilliant. Like, your overthinking brain, it's brilliant. It learned to anticipate, to predict, to avoid, to protect, all to keep you safe. But you're not in that old environment anymore. You're not 7 years old trying to decode your parents' emotions. You're not 9 years old thinking that you're too loud or you take up too much space. You're not 13 years old anymore trying to get love by being perfect in some sort of way. Like, you're an adult now. And so what you get to do is you get to choose a new pattern. So the next time that your brain kicks into overdrive, just gently ask it, like, what are you trying to protect me from? And then what do I want to believe instead? And then you pause and you breathe and you don't wait for permission, but you just talk to your old self and say, hey, I've got it from here. I'm going to be safe. We're going to do this together. And then you take one step in the right direction. And then slowly but surely, you'll start to repattern yourself. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Based off of what you've been watching recently, YouTube thinks that you should watch this video next. And if you want to make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any more of these episodes, click this button right here.